Well, I was with my colleague Annie McCain, who had previously done some work in prisons making performances in theatres over a number of years, having been invited herself in 2002 to put on a production by the education officer. And this happened in 2007, that she was talking about what would be a good thing to do in prison, and it was with a group of people, and somehow Ubu the king, Ubu Hua, came up, and she said that would be very interesting because it is about touching on death, murder, assassination, and violence and crime, but in a kind of pataphysical, as Jarry calls it, way. So she then said, well, how might we do it? And she thought, well, puppetry, but perhaps we could look at clowning as a method and as a means to be able to work with the prisoners in unlocking the text of the play, which is quite a difficult text. It seems simple, but because of the language translated from the French. So she thought, well, clowning, and then she said to me, well, would you be, I'd been in the conversation before, but then she said, would you be interested in coming in and working on the clowning with the prisoners, both as workshop leader and techniques for clowning, but also working with them when they came to actually rehearse as a kind of clown dramaturg, if you like.
How was the process of creating a performance with these clowns, with these prisoners converted in clowns?
Ah, yes. Well, what we did was we had two workshops with the prisoners, and also with my colleague Annie herself, and with the education officer of the prison, and also there were undergraduate students who were also part of the production, who were studying applied and prison theatre as part of their degree. So I went in as the clown workshop leader and ran some exercises with them, some quite simple Lecoq-based clown exercises about how to find one's clown, the notion of play, exaggeration of walk, attempting to be humorous and comic when you're not, with no jokes to tell, like the stand-up. We explored the use of the red nose as a very small mask, and how the mask becomes the leader and the clown is nosy, and so on and so forth. Having done that, we then sat down and looked at this notion of a clown trio, a comedy hierarchy, and then explored the way in which the play, such as Ma, Ubu, Père, Ubu, Billikens, does become very much a kind of clown trio, a clown threesome with a hierarchy. So we put a framework on it of clown after having played with, as it were, the essence of clowning.
And it was how the director, the guards and the other people looked to your experiment. How was the reaction? Because they give a permission, but how was their acceptance, the real acceptance of them to you?
There was a whole range of ways that the people within the institution saw what was going on in the prison. So, for instance, there was one prison. There was, what are they called? Warder, I think. I think they're called warder. Oh, officer. Prison. There was one prison officer who was extremely helpful, and you could see he really wanted to be in the play himself, but he was a prison officer, so he wasn't allowed to be. But he was very helpful. He came along a lot to rehearsals and sat there and enjoyed it very, very much. But at the other end of the spectrum, there were prison officers who had come directly into the rehearsal room, point at a prisoner and say, out. And we didn't know why. Even if we complained, there was some, we weren't particularly told, but of course they had this power to be able to say that they did. And quite often prisoners would be taken out of rehearsals for legitimate reasons, such as they were having a drugs awareness day or something like this. So it was difficult in those circumstances. But yes, a wide range. And some of the other prisoners, of course, thought this was, being in a play was effeminate or ridiculous, or what do you want to be in a play for? And so certain practices, such as bodybuilding in the gym, were highly thought of, and being in a play was something that nobody really does if you're a man.
How do you feel to work in a prison? You described the workshop, and how do you feel working in a prison? How do you perceive this experience?
Well, I mean, it was both wonderful and scary. I enjoyed it enormously. I found the prisoners extremely cooperative, and some of them have fantastic talent as well, very talented, even though they were amateurs. And that was wonderful. And once I was actually in the rehearsal rehearsing and doing workshops, I mean, the prison kind of fell away, if you like. At other times, having to go through 5 locked gates, at points being a locked gate here and a locked gate there, and what you had to do was speak into a microphone to be let through it, and you never saw anybody, and there was a camera up here. I felt like, will I get out? Like Kafka. But then, and what was very interesting was that quite often after getting back to the university, which is only just across the street, in fact, quite often getting back to the university, I would be slightly institutionalized in the prison, if you know what I mean. I would stop at a door and go, oh, and of course you can open it and go through it. Nobody was checking up on me. They probably are. Nobody was checking up on me, but I'd still had that kind of inner, Boal says, the cop in the head that tells me, oh, you've got to behave.